And the last that I'll contribute is the moon illusion. We still do not understand why the moon looks larger on the horizon than it does at apex. And I have a book, it's a wonderful review. Physicists, optical experts, biologists, psychologists, everybody's been involved. And the last page of the book is something like this. I think from an evolutionary psychology point of view, you'd say, could it be that things low on the horizon and that are symmetrical or maybe round force a gain in the perception system that say, hey, there's low-hanging fruit over there? Something like that. And so we're deriving hypotheses that say there's pre-wiring in the brain. And after all, we're learning there's a lot of pre-wiring. And chasing problems like autism is just one example. Consciousness itself, lots of pre-wiring. We don't understand consciousness. But one element of consciousness that is interesting is there's a yawn. Is people worldwide in surveys want to live in circumstances that feel fair. We want the world to be fair around us. And as e-skeptic, who knows Michael Shermer? I strongly recommend his latest book. It's wonderful. He's a friend and a brilliant writer. He cites a line of research in which an investigator will have, let's say, $10 bills. And he'll bring two people up and offer $100 to one of the two. He says, but the deal is you have to make an offer to your partner, and if you don't settle a deal, the money comes back. There's no deal, okay? So typically, the holder of the money thinks, I'll offer him 10 bucks. It's $10 he doesn't have now. So here you go, $10. Guess what happens? The other person says, no deal, right? That's free $10, but no deal. So they end up negotiating, and it ends up being whatever it is, 60, 40, I don't even know now. But here again, that's 10 bucks you could have had for free and walk, but you'd rather negotiate and lose and have no money and still feel like there was a fair process, right? Humans are the funniest people. Plasticity in the human is amazing, the ability to acquire new skills. And if you think in terms of avian birds, some species pass down the song, the family song, to their offspring, and some birds pass down plasticity so that baby can listen to dad and learn the song that way. Well, among humans we have amazing plasticial skills. We can play Chopin, we can interpret Chopin. We can run fast this way and throw a football that way 50 yards and hit a speeding target right on the money while 300-pound men are trying to kill you. It's just amazing. Or if you're a lucky Major League Baseball pitcher, you can pitch to approximation within inches, centimeters, at about $5,000 per pitch. If the economy is telling you how valuable that skill is, there you go, $5,000 per pitch. Critical to our plasticity is something called white matter. I'm sure all of you know that we have gray matter and we have white matter in our brains, right? Well, we're born with mostly gray matter. And the process of myelinization begins shortly after conception and neurogenesis and continues into adulthood. The myelinization process, I'm going to explain in a second, goes until about age 20 in females, 27 in males. So yet again, we have evidence that females mature faster than males do. If your 26-year-old son or grandson does something stupid, remind yourself that he's not fully grown yet. Myelinization is the process of taking a neuron axon, so the long body of the axon, and using glial cells that sacrifice themselves, wrap themselves around the axon multiply, so this one, then this one, then this one, then this one, and this one, and it continues in a process that the myelin itself is part lipid, part protein, and it is basically an insulator. There are gaps between these glial cells so that the electrical signals actually jump. And the net change in the velocity of nerve impulses is 3 orders of magnitude. Let me characterize that for you in just a second. So from about as slow as 0.1 meter per second in gray matter, you achieve velocities of about 100 meters per second when they're insulated with myelin. Myelin is evident in other primates, in mammals, but there's no creature like the human being that has so much white matter. In fact, I'll make the claim that that's what makes us different. That allows us to think about evolution and to write about it. For those of you who are pretty savvy, I'll give an example. This myelinization process, if you think about downloading a 4.7 gigabit movie, is like moving from a 10 base T-line, which takes 2.5 hours to download the movie, to a 10 gigabit OC192 at 5 seconds. So that's what going from gray matter to white matter gives you. That's quite a phenomenal increase, right? Now, the deal with myelinization is compounded when you think of what happened to humans over the past 4 million years. Our brains grew by a factor of 3. A factor of 3, up to 1,400, 1,500 or more cubic centimeters today. I like to think of human nature as a conference with Mother Nature, who said, oh, it's Homo sapiens back again. Let me guess, you want some more brain, all right? How are you going to pay for it? Because the brain is real, real hungry. Lots of carbohydrates, lots of energy, 40 watts itself out of a 100-watt body that we are. How are you going to pay for it? Well, Mother Nature, don't forget, brain equals behavioral repertoire. So the more brain you give us, the more things we can do and learn to do, more importantly. She said, you got it, go for it. At one point, Mother Nature said, all right, we're at a point here we're going to have to make some decisions. I'm going to convert some of your gut into brain, which is going to mean you're going to do what you've been doing, which is eat more meat, which is digested more easily. But because you have this good brain, you can catch these animals. Okay? So this process happened again until the point that we enlarged our brain. This is called encephalization by a factor of 3. Meanwhile, she was very busy with another evolution, and that was bipedalism. All right, so you want to stand upright and you want to walk efficiently. I'm going to try to get the pelvis in so that you're walking like this instead of like this. All right? Well, she did. She moved the pelvis, the hips in as much as possible, particularly in the male, but she had to stop with the female. Why? She needed to maintain integrity of the hip because of childbirth. So the hips stayed where they are with females, and she said, I got a trick. I know what I'll do. I'll make that walking a secondary sex characteristic, and so you guys will like the way women walk, and we're done with the whole thing. Finesse the whole damn deal. So this happened, but with the two evolutionary trajectories happening, there was going to be a collision, and that's baby. How are we going to cook baby in normal gestation with its head growing the way it does and still have a safe delivery? This is going to be a very, very difficult challenge. Think about human birth. It's painful, I guess. I see a lot of nodding. Requiring medication. We're born with an incomplete skull. As far as I know, we're the only species born with an incomplete skull. Tremendous head molding occurs during childbirth. Episiotomies used to be fairly routine. In fact, I understand in South America they are routine today, even without informed consent. So this is a controlled laceration of the vagina that anticipates there's going to be a laceration anyway. We might as well control it medically. It was Stephen Jay Gould who said, you know what, we're born about 6 to 9 months too early. And the compromise was, Mother Nature made us very social. We will take care of each other, and particularly during childbirth itself. Wenda Trevathan is a brilliant anthropologist. She studies human birth, and she has traveled the entire world, and says that she's not encountered a culture yet that does not have at least a midwife, if not some sort of thrown together staff at times of birth. So it is a very social process, the exact opposite of chimpanzee birth, which is mother goes away from the troop and hides.